People feel your absence before they feel your value. Let me start with a truth most people learn too late. People do not recognize your value while they have unlimited access to you. They recognize it when that access disappears. When you become unreachable, the first thing that happens isn't chaos. It's silence, and silence is dangerous because it forces people to think. When you were always available, always replying, always understanding, always forgiving, people didn't have to reflect. They didn't have to consider how they treated you. Your presence was predictable, guaranteed, safe. You were emotionally reachable at all times, and anything that is guaranteed slowly becomes invisible. This is how people begin to take you for granted, not because they're evil, but because human psychology is lazy. The brain adapts quickly to consistency. What's always there feels permanent. What feels permanent feels replaceable. But the moment you stop reaching out first, the moment you stop checking in, the moment you stop explaining yourself, something breaks, not in you, but in them, because now the space you used to fill is empty. An empty space creates discomfort. This is when people start replaying memories. They remember your kindness, your patience, your emotional presence, not because you reminded them, but because your absence made it impossible to ignore. This is one of the hardest lessons of self-respect. Sometimes people don't hear your words, they hear your absence. When you become unreachable, people finally feel the emotional weight of what you used to carry for them. The conversations you held together, the effort you gave without being asked, the understanding you offered even when it hurt you. They didn't notice it while it was happening, but they feel it when it's gone. And here's the part most people misunderstand: becoming unreachable is not punishment, it's not manipulation, it's not revenge, it's self-preservation. You didn't disappear to teach them a lesson, you disappeared because staying was teaching you to abandon yourself. There's a quiet moment when you pull back, a moment where you wonder if you're being cold, selfish, or cruel. You're not. You're just no longer volunteering to be drained, and that choice alone changes everything. Because now, people have to sit with questions they avoided before. Why don't they respond like they used to? Why do I feel their absence so strongly? Why do I miss them now? That's awareness. And awareness always comes after loss, not before. When you were reachable, people felt comfortable. When you became unreachable, they felt reality. And here's the painful but freeing truth: some people will only recognize your worth when they no longer benefit from your presence. And that's not your fault. Your only responsibility was to stop offering access to those who never protected your heart. Becoming unreachable doesn't make you heartless. It reveals who valued your heart, and who only valued your availability. And once you see that clearly, you can never unsee it. Your energy returns to you. The second thing that happens when you become unreachable is quiet, but life-changing. Your energy comes back, not all at once. Not dramatically, but slowly, steadily, like breath returning after being held for too long. For the first time in a long time, you're not reacting. You're not waiting for messages, not replaying conversations, not explaining yourself in your head. Your nervous system begins to relax, because constant availability is exhausting even when you don't realize it. Being reachable means being emotionally open at all times. It means absorbing moods, expectations, disappointments, and unspoken demands. And when you finally step back, your body notices before your mind does. You sleep deeper, your thoughts slow down, you stop feeling guilty for resting. This is what peace feels like. But peace feels unfamiliar when chaos was normal. At first, the quiet can feel uncomfortable. You might feel lonely, disconnected, or even anxious. That's because you're detoxing from emotional overstimulation. You were used to being needed, used to being useful, used to being the one people leaned on, and now you're leaning on yourself. This is where self-trust begins. When you become unreachable, you start asking yourself different questions. What do I feel right now? What do I want? What drains me? And what feeds me? Before, your energy flowed outward. Now it circulates inward. You start noticing how much you were giving without receiving, how often you compromised your boundaries to keep peace, how frequently you ignored your intuition to avoid discomfort. Becoming unreachable creates clarity, and clarity is powerful, but uncomfortable, because once you see where your energy was leaking, you can't pretend anymore. You realize not every call deserves an answer. Not every message deserves a response. Not every relationship deserves access. And instead of guilt, something new replaces it: discernment. You stop being emotionally available by default. You become emotionally available by choice, and this is where confidence is born. Not loud confidence, not ego, but quiet certainty. You stop proving your worth, stop explaining your boundaries, stop shrinking yourself to be understood. Your energy is no longer scattered. It becomes intentional. And when your energy is intentional, your presence becomes powerful. You don't chase connection anymore. You attract alignment. This is why becoming unreachable changes your entire life, not just your relationships. Your creativity improves, your focus sharpens, your intuition strengthens, because your mind is no longer crowded with emotional noise. You begin to understand a deep truth. You were never asking for too much. You were just giving too much to the wrong places, and once your energy comes back to you, you finally have enough for yourself. That's not selfish. That's survival turning into self-mastery. You become respected, not chased. The final transformation is the most powerful. When you become unreachable, you stop being chased and start being respected, and there is a massive difference. Chasing is driven by insecurity. Respect is driven by boundaries. When people realize they can't access you whenever they want, they either rise to meet your standards or disappear. Both outcomes are wins. Some people will say you've changed, but what they really mean is, you no longer tolerate what you used to accept. You no longer explain your absence. You no longer justify your boundaries. You no longer apologize for choosing peace. And this unsettles people who benefited from your silence, because boundaries remove control, and control often disguises itself as closeness. When you become unreachable, manipulation stops working. Guilt stops working, pressure stops working, you're no longer emotionally reactive, and emotional neutrality is intimidating to those who relied on your emotional responses. You don't argue, you disengage. You don't beg, you withdraw. You don't chase, you observe, and in that stillness, your power becomes visible. People start respecting your time. Your words carry more weight. Your presence feels rare, because rarity creates value. Not artificial scarcity, but earned distance. You didn't disappear to be mysterious. You disappeared to be honest with yourself. And here's the most important part: you no longer fear being misunderstood. Because you finally understand yourself, you know your limits, you know your worth, you know what you will never tolerate again. Your standards rise, not out of arrogance, but out of self-knowledge, and the people meant for you won't be offended by your boundaries. They'll feel safe within them, because healthy people don't fear limits, they respect them. Becoming unreachable doesn't mean isolating yourself from love. It means removing yourself from environments where love had conditions. And once you do that, your life aligns in ways you never imagined. The noise fades, the clarity remains, and you realize you were never meant to be available to everyone. You were meant to be aligned with yourself.